Good morning. I'm going to be reading Psalm 44 to you this morning, and sharing a few things as the Lord leads. And and yeah, so I hope you're blessed. And here you go, Psalm 44. It's it says for the choir director, Maskil for the sons of Korah. And verse 1 it says, "O God, we have heard with our ears, our fathers have told us, the work that you did in their days, in the days of old. You with your own hand drove out the nations. Then you planted them. You afflicted the peoples. Then you spread them abroad. For by their own sword they did not possess the land, and their own arm did not save them. But your right hand and your arm and the light of your presence, you favored them. You are my king, O God. Command victories for Jacob. Through you we will push back our adversaries. Through your name we will trample down those who rise up against us. For I will not trust in my bow, nor will my sword save me. But you have saved us from our adversaries, and you have put to shame those who hate us. In God we have boasted all day long, and we will give thanks to your name forever. Selah. Yet you have rejected us and brought us to dishonor, and do not go out with our armies. You cause us to turn back from the adversary, and those who hate us have taken spoil for themselves. You give us as sheep to be eaten, and have scattered us among the nations. You sell your people cheaply, and have not profited by their sale. You make us a reproach to our neighbors, a scoffing and a derision to those around us. You make us a byword among the nations, a laughingstock among the peoples. All day long my dishonor is before me, and my humiliation has overwhelmed me, because of the voice of him who reproaches and reviles, because of the presence of the enemy and the avenger. All this has come upon us, but we have not forgotten you, and we have not dealt falsely with your covenant. Our heart has not turned back, and our steps have not deviated from your way. Yet you have crushed us in a place of jackals, and covered us with the shadow of death. If we had forgotten the name of our God, or extended our hands to a strange God, would not God find this out? For he knows the secrets of the heart. But for your sake we are killed all day long. We are considered as sheep to be slaughtered. Arouse yourself. Why do you sleep, O Lord? Awake. Do not reject us forever. Why do you hide your face and forget our affliction and our oppression? For our soul has sunk down into the dust. Our body cleaves to the earth. Rise up, be our help, and redeem us for the sake of your loving kindness. David is, or actually we don't know it's David. Sorry, excuse me, I assumed it was David. He's written so many psalms. The writer of this psalm has learned what it is and is describing what it is to rely on the Lord and to cry out to the Lord, and how no good thing dwells in him that is in his flesh. And while he doesn't say that, you can see that. And we know that in verse 6 it says, "For I will not trust in my bow, nor will my sword save me. But you have saved us from our adversaries, and you have put to shame those who hate us." The writer here is expressing and giving credit where credit is due for the trampling of the enemies around him, around the people, around his people, around maybe this is a small cell of a body of believers, and he's giving credit and saying, "You, God, are the one that saved us from our adversaries. You put to shame those who hate us. In God we have boasted all day long, and we will give thanks to your name forever." And that's one thing that will never ever cease is thanksgiving to God. Say thank you and just what He's done for us and who He is and why, because He's worthy of it. And but yeah, jumping back to verse 1, it says, "O God, we have heard with our ears, our fathers have told us the work that you did in their days, in the days of old." And the psalmist is recalling the wonders and the works that God did for the Israelites, and Moses and Aaron and the people in the 40 years wandering in the desert, how He rescued and saved them and preserved them and gave them manna from heaven. And verse 2 says, "You with your own hand drove out the nations. Then you planted them. You afflicted the peoples, then you spread them abroad. Um, for by their own sword they did not possess the land, and by their own arm did not save them. But your right hand and your arm and the light of your presence, you favored them." Those three things were what caused the saints of old, the one that this psalmist is writing about in verse 1 and thinking about and has heard about with his ears in verse 1. Those three things, your right hand, your arm, and the light of your presence, all describing three things that caused these believers, these Christians, to possess the land, possess what nowadays is known as Israel, and spiritually speaking, for the saint now, it's spiritual land. We don't have physical land like Israel, but the enemies that come around us, like I don't know, lust, anger, fear, anxiety, depression, despair, you know, all these things can assault us, and we can't save ourselves. We're helpless. We saw in Psalm 42:1 Psalm 42:1, it says, "Blessed is the man who considers the helpless." And we're all helpless, and some of us know it, and some of us don't. In verse 4, he's declaring how it is. And he says, "You are my king, O God. Command victories for Jacob." Victories. Victories over what? Basketball game? No, they didn't have that game back then. Victories over the enemy. Who's the enemy? Satan. Satan is he's the arch enemy of God. And his victories in people's lives, victories for Jacob, victories over the flesh, victories over sin, victories over destruction, victories over these people groups in the Old Testament that didn't know God, hated God, wanted nothing to do with God, and were out to just kill and destroy God's people. And we see that very thing today. Just the other day, 75 people were blown up by extreme Muslims over in Pakistan, and the same is done today. And it was done to a Christian church, and people were worshiping God, and they came out of the church and were blown to pieces. And yeah, that's kind of hard to swallow, you know. And here he's describing more and more what happens, what the Lord does, how the Lord restrains the enemy in our lives and in the world. And without the restrainer, this place would be a lawless place. It would just be a total nightmarish mess. And this verse 5 says, "Through you we will push back our adversaries. Through your name we will trample down those who rise up against us. For I will not trust in my bow, nor will my sword save me." The psalmist is not looking to himself. He's not looking to his own abilities. Who's he looking to? It says, "Through your name and through you." He's looking to the Lord and looking and asking and declaring and his resolve to rely on the Lord for his victories. And he's asking, command victories for Jacob. Verse 7 says, but you have saved us from our adversaries, and you have put shame to those who hate us. Do you have the people who hate you? Do you have enemies around you that hate you? In God we have boasted all day long, and we will give thanks to your name forever. Selah. Verse 9, yet you have rejected us and brought us to dishonor, and do not go out with our armies. Now, why is there a flip here? Why is there a switch in verse 9? The first 8 verses were what seemed to be great, and then verse 9 it says, yet you have rejected us and brought us to dishonor, and do not go out with our armies. That leads me to think that something's wrong in the camp. That there's sin going on, the things that God isn't pleased with among the people or something. Maybe they're grumbling and complaining, or I don't know. There is a definite shift here. And it says, verse 10, you cause us to turn back from the adversary, and those who hate us have taken spoil for themselves. You have given us as sheep to be eaten and scattered us among the nations. When I think of scattered among the nations, I think of the diaspora, the body of Jews that has been spread all over the world, and they're now congregating back together little by little, and more now than ever, back into Israel, and signs of the end times. Verse 12, you sell your people cheaply, and have not profited by their sale. You make us a reproach to our neighbors, a scoffing and derision to those around us. So things aren't going so well in this description. You make us a byword among the people, among the nations, and a laughingstock among the peoples. All day long my dishonor is before me, and my humiliation has overwhelmed me. You ever been humiliated? Has your sin ever caused you to say stupid words or things like that, and act out or do something you wish you didn't? And I just have to, when I read verse 9 through 16, and I just think that something's going on in the camp, that God wants to get the attention of his people. They're going out in against the enemies, and they're having to retreat, and they're not victorious. And I just have to think that, okay, God is using that for them to seek him and cry out to him and say, hey, we're getting slaughtered out here. What's going on? We're getting beat up. And I think that's been a tool of the Lord to have his people reach out to him. Maybe they've forgotten him. Maybe they've been forgetful. Maybe they've flipped the switch and began to battle in the flesh instead of relying on him. And so I think this was used as a tool for the people to rely on him. In verse 17 says, all this has come upon us, but we have not forgotten you. Verse 7, we have not forgotten you, and we have not dealt falsely with your covenant. Our heart has not turned back, and our steps have not deviated from your way. And in verse 18, always, when I hear the words your way, I think if there is a way that seems right to a man, but in the end it leads to death. And the contrast of that is Jesus says, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. Come to me that you may have life. Drink of the waters. And I think of that a man's way is profitless, but the Lord's way, his way, is the way. Broad is the way that leads to destruction, but narrow is the way. Narrow is the gate that leads to life, and few find it. I think of his way in verse 18 when it says, our steps have not deviated from your way. What's a deviation? It's error. It's off track, and like a train off track, it's deviated, or a golf shot that's not in play, or it's off the line, the intended line. It's off of his line, and that line is something we discover moment by moment by his grace. And yeah, phone's ringing, so it's probably time to get started. So anyway, this is Jacob in Psalm 44, and be blessed today.